Hello, today's lesson is an introduction to writing and solving percent word problems, and this is part 1 where we're going to be finding the part. We can use the equation y equals kx in many forms and in many ways. Today we're going to use it to help us write and solve word problems that involve percentages. In fact, we're going to change the variables so that they represent what we need for this unit. So we see a P, an R, and a T. So we're going to start and label the P, that means part. When we're given these word problems, there's a part and a total, and there's also a percentage rate. So the R stands for the percentage rate, and the T stands for total. And sometimes that's referred to as whole. Here are the steps for writing an equation involving percentages. Read the problem and find the percent given. Substitute the R with that number. Decide if we're given the total amount, the whole amount, or part of the total, and replace either T if we're given the total or P if we're given the part. 3. Convert the percent to a decimal with 2 scoops to the left or by dividing by 100. And finally, solve to find the missing information, and we want to state what our answer means. So let's go ahead and try this. Let's use this example. There are 240 7th and 8th grade students enrolled at Washington Middle School, and 40% of students enrolled plan on attending the year-end field trip. How many students plan on attending the field trip? Write and solve an equation to answer this question. You may notice this space over here, and there are other ways to solve this problem besides the equation, but we're going to focus right now on the equation, and eventually we're going to come back and talk about another method to do this. So let's refer back to the steps. It says read the problem and find the percent given. Substitute R with that number. Now, you do not have to do this first. It's just a suggestion because often that's the easiest and most obvious number to find because we see a percent symbol. So right now, let's highlight that. We see this percent. So they've told us that. The directions go on to say, steps, decide if we're given the total amount or part of the total and replace either the T or the P for part. So let's read through this again. There are 240 7th and 8th grade students. And then 40% attended the field trip. And we want to find out how many attended the field trip. So does 240 seem like the part or the total? If you thought that's the total, you're correct. So we now are going to replace T with 240, and we're going to replace the R with 40. So let's write our equation. We have part equals percentage rate times total. And sometimes I like to put a little curve on the T just so it doesn't look like a plus sign. So we don't know the part. We're trying to find the part, so we're going to leave the variable P. We're going to replace R with the percentage that they give us, which is 40%, and then we're going to replace the T with the total, which is 240. However, you're going to notice these two variables are side by side, which means multiply, and when we replace it with a number, we have to put the number inside parentheses, which means that we're multiplying. So if you recall our last lesson, we want to convert this percent to a decimal, and it mentions that in direction 3. You can do it either by dividing 40 divided by 100, or you can use the 2-scoop method. We get rid of the percent, we place a decimal at the end if we're not given one, and we scoop it twice. So we now have part equals 0.4. That 0 is our placement holder for the ones column. And we could put 0.4 if you prefer to add the 0, so it looks like 40. That's fine. And we're going to multiply that times 240. So pause and use your calculator for me and then write the answer. If you had part equals 96, you are correct. So because it's a word problem, we're asked a real life question. Let's go find out what we just answered. How many students plan on attending the field trip? So we can now write the answer is 96 students plan on attending the field trip. So we've answered the question that they gave us. All right, let's go on to the next side. As mentioned earlier, this lesson focuses on finding the part. Write and solve an equation for each problem. Substitute the percent and the whole in the formula. Convert the percent to a decimal before you multiply. So let's read through it. There are 25 students in Mr. Smith's class and 60% are 8th graders. How many 8th graders are in Mr. Smith's class? Well, let's highlight some information. I see that there are 25 students in Mr. Smith's class. And then I see the percentage, 60% are 8th graders. And then they go on to ask the question, how many 8th graders are in Mr. Smith's class? So I usually look for the percentage rate first because that's easiest to spot. I see the percent signs. 25 students in Mr. Smith's class, so that must be the total. And then we must be trying to find the part. We don't know, it's a question. So we're going to start with our formula. Part equals rate times total. And we don't have a number for P, so it has to stay P. The R we get to replace or substitute with 60%. And the T we get to replace that with 25. And because again, we're replacing with two numbers that are side by side, we put it in parentheses. Next, we want to get rid of the parentheses and we want to convert the percent to a decimal. So I start the decimal at the end because it's not given and scoop it twice, or better yet, take 60 and divide it by 100. So now we have part equals 0.6. We prefer the placement holder 0, and we can attach another 0 if we need to. The calculator will give you 0.6, and we're going to multiply it times 25. So pause, copy this down, and then multiply 0.6 times 25. Hopefully you had P equals 15. Well, what does that 15 mean? How many 8th graders were in Mr. Smith's class? So we can now write that answer as 15 8th grade students were in Mr. Smith's class. So let's look at B. Anna took a survey. She asked 40 students what was their favorite ice cream flavor. Chocolate ice cream was preferred by 65% of the students. How many students like chocolate ice cream? So we're going to highlight our information. She asked 40 students what their favorite ice cream was. 65% of them preferred chocolate ice cream. And we want to know how many students like the chocolate ice cream. So we will start with P equals RT. What do you think the equation will look like after we replace the numbers? If you said that we'd still have the P for part, you're correct. That's how many students like chocolate ice cream. The rate would be 65%, and the total would be 40. She asked a total of 40 students. We're now going to get rid of the percent. We're going to start the decimal at the end and scoop it over twice. So our equation now is 0.65 times 40. What does P equal? P equals 26. So 26 students prefer chocolate ice cream. At any time you can pause this video to copy down what you need to copy down. Okay, last one. I'm going to let you read through this, and then I'm going to ask you to set up the equation. Again, we're starting with part equals rate times time. We're trying to find the part that he answered correctly, and that was 75% of 60 questions. We now scoop the decimal. We get rid of percent and scoop the decimal 2 places to the left. So we are putting 0.75 times 60 in our calculator. What is the answer? Well, the part is 45. And what does that mean? Well, that's how many questions Sal answered correctly. So we're going to write Sal answered 45 questions correctly. So now, what I'd like you to do is try the practice set. You can use this now to refer back if you have or need to look back for a reference. And thank you very much for watching this video. Take care.